Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at BB King's here in New York City. Blessing the band stage tonight with his very important holiday program is guitarist Peter White. And for over 11 years, this man has put on a very, very important, if not special Christmas program featuring saxophonist and vocalist Mindy Abair as well as trumpeter Rick Braun. As you might know, Mr. White has a brand new record on the Concord Records imprint entitled Smile, and this is his third album with the label, in which he has written all original compositions and tunes, and also he features his 13-year-old daughter on violin. We sat down earlier and we talked about the concept of this Christmas show. We talked about how all three of these musicians have known each other over the years, and we also sat down and talked about Mr. White's career. As you might know, he got his teeth cut in the industry by playing with Al Stewart on that legendary recording Year of the Cat back in the mid-1970s, and he's also done some work with Basha. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of this very special edition of the Pace Report here at BB King's featuring a Peter White Christmas. Peter, welcome to New York. Congratulations on many fronts. This is the annual Christmas show that you do at the end of the year, and also you have a record that's out, your third of new original material, Smile.
Yes, you've been following me, I can see, Brian. You know all about me. We're at BB King's right now in New York City, and this is a show that we've played at least 5 years in a row on our Christmas tour. We do the same tour every year, and with Mindi Abair and Rick Braun are with me tonight, and we've been with me many years. And yes, I do have a new album out, and it was actually here last year that I met with my record company president. His name is Mark Wexler from Concord, and he said, "Are you working on a new album?" I said, "No." "Should I be?" And he says, "Yeah, we want you to make another album." I said, "Okay, then for you I would do it, you know, because I love Mark." So I started working on it, and record time. It took me only 7 or 8 months to make an album, but I had most of the songs already written. I had just not really started to, finalize everything. So, so here we are again, a year later, and my album's out. It's called Smile, and we are back here with another Christmas show, which just keeps rolling along every year.
Before we go into the Christmas show, I want to ask you a couple questions about the CD. I understand that you have another white that you are bringing out, and she's on this recording, your daughter.
My daughter Charlotte, she's 14, but actually when we recorded, she was 13, and she plays the violin beautifully, and I wanted to get her on the album, so I had her play on a song called Don Quixote's Final Quest. And she plays so beautifully, even though, I'm her father. Yes, I may be biased, but I do think she plays beautifully. And I thought it would be nice to have her on the album.
Writing music, because you do a couple of covers on a lot of your albums, on all of your records, but the writing process, are you getting more comfortable with it? Do you enjoy now dedicating the whole album to just your music?
I don't write music anywhere near as much as I used to. I think when my daughter arrived, which was 14 years ago, everything kind of slowed down. The focus of my life was a little bit less on me and my space and my quiet time, and more with my daughter. So, and then that was also before Facebook.
Social media is something else. It takes, I'm telling you.
So yeah, I still do write music, but a lot of the songs I wrote for this album, the Smile album, came from before my daughter arrived, actually. Wow. Yeah, that long ago. And I just had them sitting around. I have lots of songs. Around that time, I'm talking about the year 2000, 1999, I wrote so many songs, and I stockpiled them all, and I'm only just now starting to go through them. In fact, the last 3 albums I've done, a lot of the songs came from that time period. I just keep them hidden in the vaults, locked up. And I bring them out, and I'm thinking, this would be a nice song to finish. With the perspective of time, you get a much better idea of how something should sound, I think. And also I'm not in a mad scramble to try and write 10 songs for an album. I talked to Brian Culbertson the other day, and he says, every time I make an album, I write 10 songs, and that's what I use. And I said, well, because I have so many songs saved from the past, I'm not feeling that pressure to write 10 songs for this album. I can write whenever the inspiration hits me, and that's nice. That's a nice luxury to have.
Peter, this is part of the very, very special Christmas show that you do every year, and I understand that this really began as a brainchild back in 1995.
Yes, I got a phone call from Art Good, who runs a syndicated radio show called Jazz Tracks, and he said, I'd like you to be part of a Christmas tour that I'm putting together, and we only have maybe five dates, and all in California, I think. I said, great, but I haven't played Christmas music for like 30 years, over 30 years. And so I started to dig back in my memory, because when I was a child, I used to play Christmas music on my recorder. That was my first instrument. And I was just seeing what sounded good on the acoustic guitar. And in fact, one of the things that came out of that tour was I did an acoustic solo arrangement of Winter Wonderland, which is still part of our show today, 20 years later. So I must credit Art with kind of getting me back into playing Christmas music. And soon after that, I recorded a CD called Songs of the Season, which was based largely upon the arrangements that I'd come up with for that original Christmas tour with Art Good, and it was called the Jazz Tracks Christmas Tour. Actually, Rick was part of that too, back then. And so after I recorded my Christmas album, I did a Christmas tour promoting my album, and the following year I was asked to join Dave Koz and his Christmas tour, which also featured Rick Braun. I can't get away from him.
And actually, you know, the ironic thing about it is Dave's Christmas show is tomorrow night, right up the street.
Right. Where are they playing?
I think they're playing at the Best Buy.
Oh, that's nice. We're at Best Buy and we're at BB King's. Right. BB, he's playing BB, we're playing BB. Hey. Yeah, we had a great time on the Dave Christmas tour. David Benoit was part of that, Brenda Russell as part of that, and Rick would come in and out, and you know, sometimes he'd be part of it and sometimes not. But, and we used a lot of the arrangements from my Christmas CD in that show. And then when Dave decided that he'd had enough of me, and he kind of revamped the whole show and brought in different people, and I thought, well, Dave doesn't need me anymore. Why don't I just start my own Christmas tour? And my agent at the time said, why don't you call Mindy Abair? And I knew Mindy, I didn't know her that well, but I said, okay, and got together with her, and we decided that we would do the tour together. That was 2003. That was our first Christmas show as Peter White Christmas. And the following year, Rick, remember Rick? Rick Braun?
Yeah, Rick, yeah. He's on the record, he's on the Christmas tour, he's everywhere.
He said to me, how could you do a Christmas tour without me? And how can I horn in on the next one? That was his exact words. Yeah, horn in. I said, look, you'll have to talk to my manager, which is funny because his manager is also my manager. So, but we're all good friends, and I remember exactly where we were. We were in a little soul food restaurant in the Bahamas. We were doing the only time I've ever been to Bahamas to do a show was there, and so we decided that we would all join forces. The three of us, Rick, Mindy Abair, and myself, and it's pretty much been that ever since for the last 10 years. And here we are at BB King's, and I think this is our 4th time playing here. Wonderful.
Somebody scream! Somebody scream!
I love Peter White. The first time I met him was in Catalina Island, and I was a new artist. I had, gotten hired to go out there and kind of be there and play and kind of be a part of the madness. And I saw him play, and I just thought he was amazing. And I went up and handed him a demo tape, which we laugh about to this day. I handed him a demo tape. He's like, I'm an artist just like you. What am I going to do with your demo tape? So, it didn't do me any good, but I was a fan from that point on. I thought he was a great artist, a great guy, and who knew that, just a few years later we'd be touring together and making records together. It was a very nice night.
Mindy, this Christmas show is really unique in the sense that you guys get to play your own music, but also you're playing music of the holiday. What are music fans coming away with when they see this show?
I love our Christmas show. I mean, I think that there's a little something for everyone. I always tell people that it's dorky, it's endearing, and it's rockin'. Because Christmas, there's got to be an element of dorky to it. There's some classic songs, there's some quirky songs. I wrote a song for Christmas that's on our record, the Peter White Christmas, with me and Rick. It's very quirky and fun, and we just have fun with the Christmas vibe and the songs and having fun together. But then we get into our own music, and some of that is very endearing, some of it is rockin', and I think people get a really interesting array of music. You go away, you've laughed, you've cried, and hopefully you've felt some.
You guys have been doing this for a couple of years now, so there's a saying, if the shoe fits, wear it. This must be really, really having an impact on your music fans.
You know what? I have so many people come up to me at all my band's concerts and just say, hey, we've seen your Christmas show, we love your Christmas show, or we saw you with, Peter White and Rick Braun. And so it is fun to have people learn about me through this tour and come see my band, or vice versa, be fans of my band and come see the Christmas show and get something just, completely different. But you're right, if the shoe fits, wear it. And the first year that Peter and I got together was 2003 for this tour, and the shoe fit, and we just had a blast, and we had to do it again. Rick joined us the second year, and we've been doing it ever since. So you'll have to kick me off it. It's fun, A different city every night, that's a lot. We didn't sleep last night. But we have so much fun. I get up there on stage, and it's on. I've got a spring in my step again.
I met Peter White backstage at a Sade concert. I was playing with Sade, and Peter is friends with Stanley Tippins, who was the tour manager with Sade, and Stanley's from Herefordshire, England. And so he came to the show, and I was playing trumpet, and that's when we met, and we started talking, and then the story continues to unfold, of course, many, many years later. We're dear friends, and our families are good friends, our kids are friends, and we've logged millions of miles on the road together over many, many years, and we're still doing it, so it's a beautiful thing.
This Christmas show is very, very special. It brings you and Mindy and Peter together. What is it that music fans leave feeling when they watch your show?
Confused, baffled. No, I'm only, I'm only kidding. No, I mean, the Christmas show, we were just talking about this, and it's amazing because we play such a wide assortment of music. And, I think people leave the show feeling Christmassy. It's become a tradition for so many people across the country to come to our show and listen to us do our thing. And it's a joy. I mean, it's hard work. I mean, as we're speaking, we left Los Angeles at 6 a.m. with 0 hours of sleep, and so the only sleep we have at this point is what we managed to get on the plane, and now we're playing 2 shows in BB King. So, it's hard work, but we enjoy it, and we love being with each other and sharing the music with everybody.
Your origins begin in the UK. Tell me how music came into your life, because guitar wasn't really how you started off. You started off playing keyboards and piano.
Yeah. My dad bought a piano when I was about 6 years old, I think. And my mum said later, she said, we had no furniture. And your dad bought a piano. And I'm glad he did, because I kind of took to that, and I got piano lessons. And but along with reading from music, I would listen to the radio, and I would just play things that I heard on the radio. I could always play by ear like that, and that kind of made it fun for me. It wasn't just about playing the notes on the page. It was about expressing myself and improvising and hearing things, and trying to copy what I heard in my own way. And it was probably a couple of years after that my dad bought me my first guitar. And I don't remember that I ever asked him for a guitar. I may have. It's too far. It's too far in history. It's too far back in history for me to remember. But the guitar arrived, and no lessons. Nobody showed me how to play the guitar. I just kind of picked it up by myself.
What kind of guitar was it?
It was an acoustic, a steel string acoustic guitar, and but I just started copying what I heard on the radio, like the Beatles. The Beatles were big back then, and they just started down, 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 down. Yeah, I loved the low notes. I really did. So that's how I learned to play the guitar, by playing the low notes. It was many months and months went by before I even tried to play the high notes. They didn't interest me that much. I loved the low notes.
Who were some of the guitarists and some of the musicians that you were really kind of idolizing and actually kind of helped you form your own style?
Well, probably the first electric guitarist I ever heard was a guy called Hank Marvin, who's a British guitar player in a band called The Shadows. who was. They backed up Cliff Richard for a while, and but they were huge back then in England. Many number one hits, and it was all instrumental guitar music. So I kind of took to that, and just started copying what I heard on the guitar. Down, 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 down. You know, lots of low notes again. And then the Beatles, of course, the Rolling Stones, Satisfaction. How could you not want to play that riff? Hearing that riff on the electric guitar, how would you not want to play that? So that's how I learned to play the guitar, just listening to the radio and hearing those bands. And later, Eric Clapton. That's the first time I really started to wonder, how do you play all those high notes? You know, he played a lot of high notes, and I never really knew what those frets did up there. I just started trying to copy what he'd doing on the high notes, and I think that's when my style really started to form, by listening to Eric Clapton. I think a lot of guitar players would say the same thing.
You know, all of the British rock bands and the guitarists got bit by the American blues and jazz and rock bug by the American artists.
Yeah, absolutely. All the guys that came up in the 60s, like Jimmy Page, like Eric Clapton, and Peter Green, who was just as big as all of them back then, but then he kind of retired and left music for a while. He was the original founder member of Fleetwood Mac. Many people don't know that. So
they started off as a blues band.
But they were the Fleetwood Mac blues band. Most people don't know that. You know a lot of stuff, Brian. I'm very impressed. But you know what? I was like a generation behind, not a generation, like 10 years behind those guys. So I wasn't listening to the American blues. I was listening to the British guys playing the American blues. I didn't even know that blues was an American music form. I thought it was something that Eric Clapton had come up with. I had no idea. And it was only later that I started to, discover B.B. King. We're in his club right now. B.B. King, that, that all the British guys idolized, and realizing the history of the blues. Because back then, if you learnt to play the guitar in the 60s, you were playing the blues. That was how you played the guitar. It was all about the blues. We were obsessed with the blues.
I wanted to ask you, because also fusion was coming out, and another great British guitarist, John McLaughlin, had the Mahavishnu Orchestra. What did you think of that? And even Jeff Beck was even straddling the lines with his solo albums.
Well, I remember listening to Mahavishnu Orchestra, and by that time I was 16, I think. And I'd already been playing the guitar for 7 or 8 years, but I mean, that was a revelation. I'd never heard anyone play guitar like that. And that kind of fusion music, it was way beyond anything that I'd ever heard at that point. And it kind of led the way for a lot of other music. I remember listening to Billy Cobham's first solo album, Spectrum. Brilliant album. And this is a guy, I'm talking about myself. I'm a guy who grew up listening to rock and roll. And I was heavily into Led Zeppelin at that time, and Black Sabbath. And at the same time, I was listening to Joni Mitchell, and I was listening to the Temptations on the radio, and I was listening to the Mahavishnu Orchestra. So there were all these musical influences, and mostly it was about guitar. If any music had guitar in it, I was interested.
When did you switch from the steel string guitar to the nylon string guitar?
That's a very good question. And I met a singer called Al Stewart in London when I was 20 years old. I know I auditioned for his band, but he didn't want a guitar player. He wanted a keyboard player. So remember the piano? I said, yeah, I can play the piano, because I always kept up my piano playing. So he hired me to play piano, and he only realized later that I could play guitar. So he went to make an album called The Year of the Cat, and he asked me to be part of it. And he said, I have this song called On the Border, which talks about Spain, the Spanish border. We're talking about the Spanish border. And I want a nylon string Spanish guitar. There's many names. They call it classic guitar, classical guitar, nylon string guitar, Spanish guitar. It's all the same thing, nylon strings. I said, I don't have a nylon string guitar, Al. I only have a steel string. And he said, well, take mine. So he gave me his nylon string guitar. I went to the studio, which was, by the way, Abbey Road Studio in London, the most famous studio in the world. I played his nylon string guitar on that song, and that it became a big feature of his show afterwards. So get this, I was still playing keyboard in the show, but for that one song, I would come out front and play the nylon string guitar. And that was the only thing anyone remembered. They didn't remember anything I did behind the keyboard, but they remembered that I was the guy that came out and played the Spanish guitar. So I became known for that. So on every album I did with Al after that, and by the way, I worked with Al for 20 years.
You guys still play from time to
Yeah,
time?
we still do. Yeah. But the nylon string guitar became my trademark sound. And even Al said to me, that's your sound. You go with that, because that's you. You know, when you play that sound, when you play that guitar, you sound distinctive, you sound different. Probably because I transferred what I'd learnt playing electric guitar and steel string guitar to the nylon string guitar. I never learnt really how to play nylon string guitar as a classical instrument or flamenco, which is what it's associated with. I've never really played classical guitar. I've never played flamenco guitar. So I was kind of like my buddy Earl Klug, who plays the Spanish guitar, but I was like, wow, isn't it great? He plays them all in a jazz way, and he doesn't play like, it's not flamenco, it's not classical, he's made his own style. And in a way, I kind of did too, because coming from a rock and roll background and not having had any lessons on the guitar, I just kind of made up my own thing, which is the same as what I have now today, which is 40 years after Al Stewart handed me his nylon string guitar, I'm still playing the nylon string guitar on stage.
You know, I want to ask you, you were 20 years old and you walk into Abbey Road Studios. And then, here's the icing on the cake. Alan Parsons is producing Al Stewart's album.
Yeah. And when we recorded the follow-up album to Year of the Cat, which was called Time Passages, Paul McCartney was recording in another studio down the hallway. He was recording his London Town album. And I literally bumped into him in the corridor. And can you imagine, you know, I've been listening to the Beatles since I was a kid. They were like idols to me. And I bumped into Paul McCartney. He said, oh, hi, hi. Oh, my God, that's Paul McCartney. And Linda McCartney, both of them. So he was very nice. So I talked to him for a couple of moments. He was asking me, what are you doing? Well, I'm working with Alan Parsons. He says, oh, Parsons, oh, Parsnip. He called him Parsnip. And so he came and listened to what we were doing. And it was great.
40 years later, did you ever in a million years think that Alan Parsons would be the icon that he has become as far as the musician, producer, and engineer?
Well, yeah. When I met him, he was already an icon as a producer. Well, he was an engineer for the Pink Floyd, and for the Beatles, I think. But I just knew him as a producer. He just started as a producer for the last couple of years. He was just a little bit older than me. He was maybe 5 years older than me. But he was a very nice guy, and I never got the feeling that, apart from the fact that we were in Abbey Road Studios, which just thrilled me, it was all very low key. Everybody was very nice to each other, and nobody was big timing anybody. There was hardly anyone associated with that album, actually, that was over the age of 30. We were all in our 20s. I was 20, Al was 29, and Alan Parsons, I think, was 26 at that time. So, we made this album, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never been in a studio before. But Alan gave me great guidance. He would say, don't play so much. The less you play, the more impact it has. So, and I'm a guitar player. I just want to play all the way through a song. And he says, no, don't do that. Wait until he stops singing. Then you play. And if you listen to that song today, it's called On the Border from the Year of the Cat album, you'll hear that Spanish guitar comes in. It's about a minute into the song after Al stopped singing. And that was Alan's idea. If it was up to me, I would have played all the way from the beginning. But see, it was a very great lesson I learned from Alan all those years ago. And it's helped me enormously in my career.
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report. Reporting live here at BB King's here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Mindy Abair, as well as Rick Braun and the talented Peter White for their time also the staff and management here at BB King's for their warm hospitality. I'd like to also thank you guys for supporting me this year. I want to wish you a happy holidays and a very blessed new year. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column, as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.